The news spread through the galaxy in less than a day. The Galactic Council had voted, and it wasn't in Earth's favor. 100 alien species had sat in a shining hall of marble and glass, and one by one they had raised their hands. The vote was clear. Earth would be brought under Council control by force. Somewhere in a quiet corner of Earth, far from the cameras and speeches, Marcus sat alone in his small apartment, staring at the old communication pad on his table. It had been years since he'd spoken to her. Alira was not human. She had grown up on Avaris Prime, a bright green world circling a warm yellow sun. Her people were part of the Council. She and Marcus had met when she visited Earth. As part of a student exchange program, they had laughed together, argued about silly things, and explored each other's cultures. She was his closest friend, maybe more than a friend, though neither had ever said the words aloud. But after the program ended, she had returned to her world, and the distance had grown. Messages became shorter. Calls became rare. Then one day they stopped completely. And now, her people had voted. He didn't know how she had voted, or if she had even been in the chamber when the decision was made. But the idea that she might have raised her hand with the rest, it hurt more than he wanted to admit. The city outside was alive with whispers. News channels ran the Council's announcement again and again. For the stability of the galaxy, Earth will be integrated into the galactic framework. Most people didn't even know what integrated really meant. Marcus did. He'd studied enough history to know it was just a softer word for conquered. That night, he sat at his desk, scrolling through old messages from Alira. Her voice in those recordings was warm and full of light. Marcus, you humans, you're unpredictable. That's why I like you. Don't ever change, all right? You have this way of never giving up. He wished he could believe those words. Right now. But all he felt was the hollow space where her friendship used to be. He wanted to send her a message, to ask if she'd been part of the vote, to tell her Earth wasn't what the Council thought. But he didn't know if she'd answer. And part of him feared the answer. Days passed. Earth's leaders met in secret, sending signals through encrypted channels. The Council thought humans were disorganized, unprepared. That was their mistake. But Marcus wasn't a soldier or a politician. He was just a man who missed someone. One evening, unable to bear the silence, he walked out into the rain. The streets glowed with reflections of red and blue signs. In the distance, a massive screen showed the alien ambassador declaring that Earth's transition would be peaceful if they cooperated. Marcus stopped under the shelter of an old bookstore and stared at his reflection in the glass. He looked tired, older than he felt inside. He imagined Alira standing there beside him, tilting her head the way she always did when she was trying to understand him. And that's when he made a decision. The next morning, he went to the old communications hub on the edge of the city. It was a relic from the early days of human space contact, mostly abandoned now that newer networks existed. But the old system had something the new ones didn't. It wasn't monitored by the Council. He paid the clerk with a small bag of coins. Real metal coins, not credits, and stepped into a private booth. The walls hummed faintly, the air smelling of dust and ozone. He hesitated, fingers hovering over the keypad. Then he typed her personal frequency. The system pulsed. Searching. No answer. He almost hung up. But then a small chime sounded, and her face appeared on the screen. Alira looked older too. Her once bright silver hair was pulled back, her eyes tired. But when she saw him, they widened. Marcus? He swallowed hard. Hi, Alira. It's been a while. She hesitated. It has. Why are you contacting me now? He tried to smile. Because the Council voted. And I don't know where you were when it happened, but I needed to know if... He stopped, unable to finish the sentence. Her gaze lowered. I wasn't there. I was ordered to stay away. But Marcus, you have to understand, the Council believes Earth is dangerous. Dangerous? He laughed softly. We're farmers and scientists and artists. Sure, we fight sometimes. We're human, but we're not what they think. I know, she said quietly. But the Council fears what it doesn't control. And humans. You don't let yourselves be controlled? There was a long silence. I missed you, Marcus said finally. I missed you too. They talked for nearly an hour about old memories and small things. But there was a weight between them neither could lift, the coming invasion. Before ending the call, Marcus leaned closer to the screen. Alira, no matter what happens, remember this. Humans don't break easily. If the Council comes, they won't find what they expect. Her eyes softened, but there was a flicker of fear there too. I believe you. I just hope they realize it before it's too late. The screen went dark dot in the days that followed. The Council's ships began moving toward the solar system. Official broadcasts showed the alien fleets as a sign of progress. But in quiet corners of Earth, engineers, scientists, and soldiers prepared in ways the Council could not imagine. Marcus still didn't know if he'd ever see Alira again. But their call had reminded him of something important. Earth still had friends out there, even if they were few. And humans had something the Council could never vote away, the will to stand, even when the galaxy thought they couldn't. And when the history books one day told the story of the invasion, they would call this moment by its true name, *Marcus. Didn't sleep much after the call with Alira. Every time he closed his eyes, he saw her face on the flickering screen, looking both relieved and afraid. Her voice still echoed in his mind. I believe you. I just hope they realize it before. It's too late. The Council's fleets were moving closer now. That was no secret. Even the most optimistic news channels couldn't hide it anymore. Massive alien ships were crossing the dark between stars, heading for Earth. Marcus wasn't a soldier. He wasn't a leader. He was just Marcus. But the weight of everything made him feel like he should be doing something. Still, the only thing he really wanted was to hear from her again. Days passed. He checked the old communications hub every morning, hoping for a message. Nothing. The empty inbox felt heavier with each passing day. On the third morning, he walked through the city, the air filled with a strange tension. Posters appeared on walls, showing smiling council envoys, promising unity and peace. Marcus stopped to look at one. The alien in the picture had the same shade of silver hair as Alira, but the eyes were cold and distant. He thought about their last talk, how she'd said she wasn't part of the vote, how she'd admitted the Council feared humans because they couldn't be controlled. That fear, it was probably why she had stayed away for so long. And yet, it still hurt. That evening, Marcus sat at his kitchen table, a steaming mug of tea in front of him. Outside, the rain made the streets shimmer like rivers of light. He thought about sending her another message. But what would he say? I miss you sounded too small. I'm scared sounded too weak. And telling her about the quiet preparations he suspected Earth was making, that might put her in danger. He sighed and took a sip of tea. That's when the pad buzzed. His heart jumped. He pressed the button, and there she was again. Marcus, Alira said, her voice low. I don't have much time. I'm using a private relay. The Council would not be pleased if they knew. I thought you decided not to answer, Marcus admitted. I wanted to. But every time I start to send a message, I think about what's coming. And I wonder if talking to you will only make it worse for you. Marcus leaned forward. You're wrong. Hearing from you makes it better. Even if the sky is falling, I'd rather hear your voice than sit here in silence. She smiled faintly, but there was sadness in it. You humans, always turning fear into stubbornness. They talked quietly. Not about the war, not directly. Instead, they remembered little things. The time they had gotten lost in the crowded streets of New London. The night they had stayed up late just to watch the sunrise over the Pacific. The strange earth food Alira had tried and pretended to enjoy. For a while, it almost felt like before. But there was a weight in every pause, an unspoken truth neither wanted to break. Finally, Marcus asked the question he had been avoiding. Alira, if the council invades, will you be with them? She looked away. I don't know. They may order my unit to take part. If they do, I'll try to avoid being on the front lines. But Marcus, I can't promise. He felt a coldness in his chest. Not because she might fight against Earth, but because she might have no choice. Later that night, after the call ended, Marcus went out walking again. He passed the docks where huge cargo ships floated in the water, silent and dark. Farther, down the coast, he saw a fenced-off area where engineers worked under floodlights, building something massive. He didn't need to ask what it was. Humans were preparing Dot. It was strange, knowing the galaxy thought of Earth as weak, while here, in hidden corners, people worked tirelessly, quietly, on something the council wouldn't expect. Marcus thought about Alira. She had told him the council feared humans because they didn't bend easily. Maybe that was true. Maybe that was their strength. The next morning, he wrote her a message. It wasn't long, just a few lines. Alira, no matter how far apart we are, you're still my friend. If they come, remember what you said. The council fears what it doesn't control. The alien fleets were now only weeks away. From the official news reports, everything seemed calm. The council's envoys kept repeating the same words. There will be no conflict if Earth complies. But Marcus knew better. The streets felt different. The air itself seemed to hum with something hidden. Every day, he walked past the fenced construction yard near the docks. More pieces of strange metallic structures rose into the sky. They weren't labeled, and no one talked about them in public. But Marcus caught glimpses of men and women in heavy suits welding, carrying crates stamped with warning signs. Whatever it wasn't for trade or science. It was for defense. Marcus still hadn't heard back from Alira after the last message he sent. He tried not to take it personally. Maybe she wasn't allowed to respond. Maybe the council had tightened communications. But the silence cut deeper with each day. At night, he sat at his desk, rereading her last words. I believe you. I just hope they realize it before it's too late. He wondered if she believed in Earth's strength, or if she was just being kind. One rainy afternoon, Marcus visited the old communications hub again. The same clerk was there, sitting behind the dusty counter. Any chance of messages for me? Marcus asked. The clerk checked the console and shook his head. Nothing, sorry. Marcus forced a smile. No problem, thanks. As he turned to leave, the clerk hesitated. You know, you're not the only one coming in here lately. A lot of people are using the old lines again. Marcus frowned. Why? The clerk shrugged. Don't know. But it feels organized. Like someone's passing instructions the council can't hear. That night, Marcus couldn't stop thinking about it. If Earth's leaders were using these old lines to prepare in secret, then maybe Alira could use them too. The thought brought a flicker of hope. He wrote another short message, this time coded, a trick they'd used back when they were students, hiding jokes inside strange phrases. The library near the harbor still has your favorite tea. If you ever visit, I'll be there. He sent it through the hub. If she remembered, she'd understand it wasn't really about tea. It was a way of saying, I'm still here, waiting. Days passed without an answer. Marcus tried to keep busy, helping at the harbor and running small errands for the engineers at the docks. He wasn't part of the official work, but carrying supplies kept his mind from wandering too far into worry. Sometimes, as he worked, he imagined Alira standing on one of those alien ships, looking down at Earth. Would she see him as just another human in a crowd? Or would she remember the man who once made her laugh so hard she nearly dropped her translator device? One evening, as the sun set in shades of orange and deep blue, Marcus was walking home when a stranger approached him. She was tall, wearing a heavy coat despite the warm air. "You're Marcus?" she asked. "Yes." He studied her face. "Do I know you?" "No," she said. "But someone does. Someone far away." Before he could speak, she handed him a small device, smooth, silver, no bigger than his palm. "This will connect you to her. But only once. Use it carefully." Marcus's heart raced. "Who sent you?" The woman smiled faintly. "Let's just say not everyone in the council agrees with the vote." Then she turned and walked away, disappearing into the crowd. Back in his apartment, Marcus sat at the table, the device glowing faintly in his hand. His mind swirled with questions. Was it a trap? Or was this the one chance to reach Alira before the fleets arrived? He pressed the button. The glow shifted, and after a brief pause, Alira's face appeared, clearer than it had ever been on the old come lines. "Marcus," she said, eyes wide. "How did you? Someone gave me this. Sighed it would let me reach you." She looked away briefly. "It's dangerous for both of us to talk this way." "I don't care," Marcus said quietly. I didn't want the last time we spoke to be the last time." Her gaze softened. "I didn't either." They talked for a long time about things that didn't matter and things that mattered too much. Alira admitted that there were whispers. Within the council, not everyone believed invading Earth was wise. Some feared it could start something bigger than a simple integration. Then why don't they stop it? Marcus asked. Because the majority still thinks humans are easy to control. They think your history of wars means you'll break quickly under pressure. Marcus gave a small smile. Then they've never truly met us. Before the connection ended, Marcus leaned closer to the device. "If you can watch what happens, you'll see why they were wrong." Alira's eyes searched his face. "Marcus, if things go badly, they won't," he said, though he wasn't entirely sure. "Just remember me." The screen went dark. That night, Marcus walked to the harbor again. The fenced yard was lit by tall floodlights. This time, one of the gates was open. Inside, he saw it, a massive ship, nothing like the old human designs. Sleek, dark, its surface rippling faintly, as though a live-dot-an engineer noticed him watching and grinned. "Beautiful, isn't she? You didn't hear this from me, but she outrun anything the council throws at us." Marcus felt something shift in his chest. Hope, real solid hope. For the first time in weeks, the distance between him and Alira felt smaller, not because she was closer, but because the fight ahead suddenly seemed winnable. As he walked home, stars glittered above. Somewhere among them, alien ships were drawing near. Somewhere among them, Alira was watching and waiting. And Marcus knew, when the day came, Earth wouldn't stand alone in silence. It would speak in its own way, and the galaxy would hear. The day came quietly. There was no sudden explosion, no dramatic flash in the sky. One morning, the sun rose over the harbor, and there they were, faint silver shapes gliding against the deep blue of space, just visible to the naked eye if you knew where to look. The council's fleet. Marcus stood on the rooftop of his building, watching through an old pair of binoculars. Even from this distance, the ships looked unreal, smooth arcs of metal that seemed to bend the light around them. They moved slowly, deliberately, like predators circling their prey. Down in the streets, life carried on. Vendors sold food. Children played, but Marcus could feel the difference. The city's laughter was quieter. Conversations stopped when people caught sight of the faint glimmers in the sky. He hadn't heard from Alira since the night she appeared on the silver device. Every day he checked it, hoping she'd somehow send another call. Nothing came. The silence was beginning to feel heavier than the invasion itself. Part of him wanted to believe she was watching from afar, maybe on one of those ships, and that she'd remember his words. If you can, watch what happens. But another part feared the truth, that she was too far away, or too bound by orders, to reach out. By the second day, the news feeds showed official images. The Council's ships had stopped just outside the moon's orbit. They were waiting. Earth's leaders had yet to respond to their arrival, at least not publicly. Marcus guessed that the real conversations were happening in private, far from the public eye. That evening, unable to stay indoors, Marcus walked to the harbor. The fenced construction yard was more active than ever. Lights burned bright. Machines hummed, and workers moved with an urgency he had never seen before. The sleek black ship he'd glimpsed earlier was now surrounded by smaller craft. Engineers checked panels, loaded equipment, and tested engines that gave off a faint blue glow. One of the workers, a young woman with grease on her face, noticed Marcus staring. First time seeing her this close? Marcus nodded. She's beautiful. She's fast, too, the woman said, pride in her voice. The Council thinks they've mapped all our tech. They haven't seen anything like this. Marcus smiled faintly. HFY wasn't just about strength. It was about surprising those who thought they already knew you. On the third day, the Council sent a message to Earth. It played on every public screen. A tall alien figure with deep violet skin, speaking. In calm, measured tones. People of Earth, we come not as conquerors, but as guides. Your world stands at a turning point. Join us peacefully, and you will share in the stability and prosperity of the Galactic Council. Refuse, and we will be forced to ensure your cooperation. Marcus watched from a crowded square. No one clapped. No one cheered. People just stood there, silent. Then the screen went dark. That night, Marcus sat in his apartment, staring at the silver device. He thought about sending Alira a message, even if she couldn't answer. Just a few words, something to remind her that he was still here. But before he could type, the device flickered, and her face appeared. Marcus, she said quickly. I don't have long. I'm not on one of the main ships, but I can see them from where I am. The Council is restless. They thought Earth would answer by now. Marcus leaned forward. We will answer, just not the way they expect. Her eyes softened. I want to believe that. You will, he said, though he knew the uncertainty in his voice betrayed him. The connection crackled. She looked over her shoulder, then back at him. Marcus, when the time comes, stay safe. I know you want to see what happens, but I'm not hiding, he said quietly. If the galaxy's going to learn who we are, I'm going to be there to see it. For a moment, she just looked at him, her expression unreadable. Then the screen went dark. The next morning, Earth finally answered. It wasn't a speech. It wasn't a surrender. It was silence. No broadcasts, no responses. The alien fleet stayed where it was, unmoving, clearly expecting more. But Marcus could see movement in other places. The Jupiter incident had shaken the Council. Marcus could feel it, even from Earth. News from their networks was careful and vague, but it was clear something had gone wrong. The official statement called it an unexpected technical failure. The whispers called it something else. A warning. He wondered if Alira had seen it. He hoped she had. The alien fleet still floated beyond the moon, like a storm waiting to break. Each day, their presence felt heavier, pressing against the edges of human life. Yet Marcus noticed something strange. People weren't panicking at it. The harbor, the workers no longer spoke in hushed voices. They moved with quiet confidence. In the markets, vendors still sold food. Children still played in the streets, but there was a subtle change in the air. It was as if everyone was waiting for something they knew was coming. Marcus felt it too. Still, the distance between him and Alira ached like a hidden bruise. She hadn't called since the last rushed conversation. Every time he looked at the silver device, he felt the same pull, the urge to reach out. But he didn't know if she could answer, or if trying would put her in danger. One night, he gave in. He sent just 5 words. "I hope you saw it." No answer came. 3 days later, Earth's skies changed. In the early morning, Marcus awoke to a deep hum, so low it made the glass in his windows tremble. He ran to the rooftop dot above the horizon. Hundreds of small, dark shapes were rising from the oceans. They glinted in the sunlight, then vanished. Into the upper atmosphere, too fast for the naked eye to follow. They weren't missiles. They weren't satellites. Marcus didn't know what they were, but he knew they weren't for show dot by midday. The council made its move. A formation of their ships broke away from the main fleet, heading toward Earth. They didn't fire. They didn't hail. They simply approached. Their presence alone, a demand for surrender. Marcus joined a crowd in the city square, everyone staring up at the live feed on the giant screens. The alien ships came closer and closer, until they stopped, suspended, high above the clouds. And then, it happened. One by one, their lights flickered. The sleek silver hulls dimmed, their engines went silent, and the ships began to drift, powerless, like leaves on a still pond. The feed cut to black. Marcus felt his chest tighten. No shots fired, no explosions, just silence. The same kind of silence Earth had been giving them since the beginning. Whatever had happened near Jupiter had just happened again, only this time closer. He smiled despite himself. Why wasn't always about strength? Sometimes it was about knowing when to say nothing and letting your actions speak for you. That evening, the silver device lit up. He grabbed it, heart racing. Alira's face appeared, her eyes wide. "Marcus, what did you do?" He gave a small laugh. "Me? Nothing. But I told you, we wouldn't answer the way they expect." "I saw it," she whispered. "Everyone did. The council's already trying to explain it away, but people are asking questions. Even some of the crews here are starting to wonder if Earth might be different." "Different?" Marcus said. "We've always been different. They just never noticed until now." She hesitated. "Marcus, if this keeps going, they won't stop at power games. They'll hit harder. And if they do," Marcus said quietly, "they'll learn something else about us." For a moment, neither of them spoke. He wanted to tell her everything he felt. How much he missed her, how every day without her felt like a piece of him was missing. But the words caught in his throat. Finally, he said, "When this is over, I want to see you again. Not through a screen, not with fleets hanging over our heads." Her expression softened, and for a moment, she looked like the Alira he remembered from years ago. "I'd like that too." The connection faded, leaving the silver device dark once more. In the days that followed, the council didn't move their fleet closer. They held position, as if trying to understand what had just happened. But Marcus knew they were planning. Something. Earth was planning too. He saw it in the way workers at the harbor began loading sealed crates into unmarked ships. He saw it in the way military patrols quietly vanished from the streets, replaced by civilian volunteers who carried themselves with strange confidence. The world was holding its breath. One night, Marcus walked along the shoreline. The moonlight turned the waves silver. In the distance, the faint outlines of alien ships shimmered against the stars. Somewhere out there, Alira was watching this same moon from another world, or maybe from one of those ships. The ache of distance was still there, but now it was joined by something stronger. Hope. Because Marcus knew what the Council didn't. This wasn't just about ships and weapons. It was about will, about the unshakable belief that no matter how far apart you were from the people you cared about, that bond could still outlast the longest distance. And if Earth could hold on to that, then maybe, just maybe, it could win. Asterisk 4. Almost 2 weeks, their great ship stayed motionless beyond the moon. The people of Earth kept working, kept watching, but Marcus knew it was only the calm before something big. And then, late one night, the silver device on his desk lit up again. Alira's face appeared, but this time she wasn't smiling. Marcus, they're preparing something. A strike. They're not saying it openly, but I've seen the orders. Marcus leaned closer. What kind of strike? A disabling wave, she said. It'll knock out your cities, your comms, everything. They think it will make Earth behave. He frowned. They still think we'll bow our heads. She hesitated. Marcus, they've assigned me to lead one of the relay teams. If I refuse, they'll replace me. If I obey, I'll be part of it? Marcus's chest tightened. He wanted to tell her to refuse, to run, to come back to Earth. But he knew it wasn't that simple. She was surrounded by the Council's people, locked in their systems. You've always had a choice, he said quietly. Not this time, she said, shaking her head. If I disobey openly, they'll see me as a traitor. They'll cut me off from everything and from you. The silence between them stretched. Alira, he said finally, remember what I told you? We don't answer the way they expect. Maybe neither should you. Her eyes narrowed slightly. You're asking me to sabotage the mission? I'm asking you to do what you think is right, Marcus said. Even if you can't stop them completely, maybe you can change what happens. She didn't answer. The connection flickered and went dark. The days that followed were heavy with waiting. Marcus kept working at the harbor, but his mind was always elsewhere, on Alira, on the looming fleet, on what would happen when the Council made their move. On the 4th day, Earth's skies filled with strange lights. Not the rising shapes from the oceans this time. These came from above. From the alien ships. The Council's disabling wave was beginning. In the city square, screens lit up with static. Communications faltered. Streetlights flickered, machines stalled. Marcus heard people calling out in confusion, some in fear. But then something odd happened. The lights steadied. The screens cleared. The machines came back online, slower, weaker, but still running. It was as if the wave had missed its mark. Hours later, the silver device lit up again. Alira's face was pale, her voice hushed. I changed the relay coordinates. The wave still fired, but most of it was dispersed into empty space. They think it was a technical fault. He felt a rush of pride and something deeper. You did it? No, she said quickly. I only bought you time. They'll try again, and next time I might not be in the right place to change it. Time is all we need, Marcus said. You've done more than you think. She looked at him for a long moment. I wish I could be there. I wish. She stopped herself. I have to go before they trace this call. The screen went dark again, leaving Marcus staring at his own reflection. That night, he walked the shoreline again. The wind was cold, the sky bright with stars. Somewhere up there, Alira was risking everything to keep Earth standing. The ache, Of distance was sharper now, but it was wrapped in something else. Gratitude. Even far away, even trapped in the Council's grip, she'd chosen to act out. It was proof of something Marcus had always believed, that humanity's strength wasn't just in ships or weapons. It was in choice. In deciding to stand, even when it would be easier to kneel. 2 days later, Marcus saw something new at the harbor. Dock workers were unloading crates marked with symbols he didn't recognize. Inside were sleek, silver-colored drones, not alien, but human-made. It looked like nothing Earth had ever officially announced. One of the supervisors caught Marcus watching and said quietly, "They're calling them lanterns. You'll see why soon." That night, dozens of lantern drones launched silently from coastal ports across the world. They rose into the dark sky, their engines barely visible. Marcus didn't know their exact purpose, only that Earth wasn't waiting to be attacked again. For the first time since this all began, he felt the balance shift. He didn't know when he'd see Alira again, or if the distance between them could ever be closed. But he knew this much. They were both fighting in their own way, and somewhere in that unspoken connection, in the choice to keep trying, even from different worlds, there was hope, because if one person's choice could change the path of a whole planet, then maybe two people's choices could change the course of a war.